The Trafficking in Persons report was released this week by the U.S. Department of State. For Belize, there is no change to its ranking as it remains at Tier 3, meaning that the government of Belize has not fully met the minimum standards and is not making significant efforts to do so. The 422-page report refers to Belize as a source, transit and destination country for men, women and children subjected to sex trafficking and forced labor. It goes on to note that in the tourist areas of the country, tourists, primarily from the United States, are able to acquire sex from children who are victims of child sex trafficking. Regarding the efforts being made by the various agencies tasked to mitigate and prosecute cases of trafficking in persons, the report noted that while investigations began into 7 cases involving 6 suspects, and while there was the continuation of 1 case from the previous year, there are yet to be any new prosecutions since then. For 2016 so far, 1 trafficker has been convicted, and as opposed to incarceration, the individual was given a fine. One of the weaknesses in the system is listed as victim identification efforts. The report acknowledges the increase in raids of bars and other establishments, but rather than looking into the issue of human trafficking, only the immigration status of the subjects is looked into. In addition, the report notes, and we quote, "The government did not investigate or prosecute any public officials for alleged complicity in human trafficking-related offenses, despite reports of a significant level of official complicity." End of quote. The report recommends that Belize develop and be consistent in implementing formal procedures to identify and refer to care, victims of sex and labor trafficking among vulnerable groups, and to involve Spanish-speaking social workers, non-governmental organizations, or advocates for the victims in the process. It is also being recommended that the laws be amended to effectively criminalize all commercial sex acts with minors and to restrict the ability to offer fines in lieu of prison time. According to the U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry, this year's report underscores the need for increased attention to preventing human trafficking. It encourages governments to identify and acknowledge those most at risk in society and to create effective ways to recognize vulnerable populations and help first responders spot the methods used by human traffickers. By understanding the needs of vulnerable groups, governments can partner with NGOs and the private sector to protect the innocent from would-be traffickers. End of quote. As it relates to prosecution, the report went on to read, and we quote again, "The government made inadequate efforts to investigate and prosecute trafficking offenses and convict traffickers. The Trafficking in Persons Act 2013 prohibits all forms of trafficking and prescribes penalties of 1 to 8 years imprisonment for the trafficking of adults and up to 12 years imprisonment for the trafficking of children. The prescribed penalties are sufficiently stringent but are not commensurate with those prescribed for rape. The 2013 Commercial Sexual Exploitation of Children Act criminalizes the facilitation of prostitution of children younger than 18. This law, however, allows adults to legally engage in sexual activity with 16 and 17-year-old children in exchange for remuneration, gifts, goods, food, or other benefits if there is no third party involved, leaving children of this age group vulnerable to sex trafficking." End of quote. Belize has been at Tier 3 for 2 consecutive years after enjoying a 3-year stint at Tier 2 for the period 2011-2013.